At my dad's retirement party, my sister was bragging to everyone that she's the successful one because she married rich while I'm still single and just a teacher. Then someone said congrats on my book deal and she grabbed my phone off the table and saw the contract amount. The way her face went from smug to pale when she saw that number was absolutely priceless. I never thought my own birthday could feel like a betrayal. But on my 18th, with a half-eaten cake on the table, my parents showed me what family truly meant. And it shattered everything. I grew up in a small, suffocating town where everyone knew your business, often before you did. My parents, Olivia and Arthur, weren't monsters, but they weren't exactly nurturing. Olivia always had a short fuse and a bottomless list of complaints. Arthur, well, his recliner in the living room was more important than anything else. If he wasn't yelling at the TV, he was usually yelling at me. I was never the golden child, that was Lucas. Popular, athletic, decent grades, incapable of wrong in their eyes. I was the quiet one, the kid who'd stay late at school, helping in the library, because it beat going home. I just kept my head down, worked, and tried not to make waves. School became my escape. Math, computer science, I poured myself into it. My family just called me little nerd, or the future IT guy who'll fix our Wi-Fi for free. Always with a laugh, but the jokes stung. Still, I pushed on, believing that if I just did well enough, maybe they'd finally see me. Senior year came, and I applied for every scholarship imaginable. My parents had made it clear college was my problem. If you want to go, figure it out yourself, Arthur would grunt, beer in hand. We're not made of money. So, I did. I applied to a prestigious STEM program 3 states away, a total long shot. But I got in. Not just accepted, but a full-ride scholarship, tuition, housing, meals, everything. I opened the letter alone in my room, staring at the words like they might vanish if I blinked. It felt like freedom, printed on thick paper. I cried quietly, a silent, joyful tremor. Wouldn't want Lucas to hear and start with his don't be soft routine. I waited a few days to tell them, hoping, just hoping, they'd be proud. Not balloons or a party, just a simple good job would have been nice. Instead, I got silence. Olivia barely glanced at the letter, her eyes glued to a wedding show, wine glass in hand. That's nice, Ethan, she mumbled without looking up. Arthur skimmed it, then scoffed, so, they're just giving you free money, huh? Must be nice. Lucas wasn't even home, probably out with friends, sending photos to the family chat. Classic Lucas. A week later, my 18th birthday arrived. I wasn't expecting much, maybe a store-bought cake. But that morning, Olivia called me downstairs, hinting at something special. My heart actually fluttered. Maybe they'd come around. There was a cake, store-bought, with my name in lopsided blue frosting. Arthur even shook my hand. Well, you're a man now. Act like one. It was the closest to affection I'd gotten from him in years. We sat at the table. Olivia poured another glass of wine, barely noon. Then she got this strange look, like bracing for impact. And that's when Arthur said it. So, about that scholarship money, we've been thinking. You don't really need all that for yourself, right? I blinked. What? You're still living here, aren't you? He continued. We've fed you, paid your bills, kept a roof over your head. It's only fair you contribute back. Your mom and I are behind on a few things. Wait, I said slowly. You want me to give you my scholarship money? Olivia chimed in, not all of it, honey. Just what's reasonable. You'll still have enough for college. We're just asking for a bit of help. That's what families do. We take care of each other. I sat there, stunned. My mind couldn't keep up. They were serious. They truly expected me to hand over my ticket out, money I'd earned, like it was nothing. No, I said. They looked at me like I'd cursed. Arthur's face darkened. Excuse me? No, I repeated. That money is for college. I earned it. I'm not giving it to you. Olivia put her wineglass down a little too hard. Don't be selfish, Ethan. After everything we've done for you. I laughed. It just came out, sharp and bitter. What have you done? You've ignored me for 18 years unless you needed something. You didn't pay for any of my schooling, didn't help with applications. You didn't even drive me to the college tour last year because you were too busy relaxing. And now that I've got something good, you want to take it? The air in the room shifted. Arthur stood so fast his chair scraped loudly. His voice boomed. You ungrateful little brat. This is our house. We've put up with your attitude for too long. If you're going to disrespect us like this, you can get out. What? I blinked. You heard me, he said. You're 18 now. That means you're grown. You want to be grown? Then act like it. Pack your stuff and leave. You're not welcome here if you're going to talk to us like that. Olivia didn't stop him. She just crossed her arms, staring at the cake with my name on it, which now felt like a cruel joke. I left that night. No warning, just a duffel bag, my acceptance letter, and the front door. They didn't stop me. They didn't call after me. Lucas didn't even text. And that was that. I spent the next few months couch hopping, working part-time jobs until fall semester. I had nothing but my spot in that program, and I was determined to make it work. The first year was brutally hard. Late nights working, studying every spare moment, learning to stretch $1 into a week of meals. But I did it. And I kept doing it. 5 years later, I wasn't that kid who walked out with tears and a duffel bag. I had a great job as a software engineer in the city, my own apartment, my own car, and a fragile sense of peace. That peace didn't last. 2 months ago, a knock on my door, and standing there, like they hadn't thrown me out on my birthday, were Olivia and Arthur, smiling, saying they needed a place to stay. And that's where things truly got interesting. They stood in my hallway like ghosts from a life I'd buried. Olivia in her oversized windbreaker, Arthur with that same old trucker cap he used to wear while yelling at the news. They looked smaller, older. For a split second, that old longing rose up, the part of me that still wanted their approval. But that wasn't why they were there. We were just passing through, Olivia said casually, as if their sudden appearance was a coincidence. Thought we'd stop by. It's been so long, Ethan. I stood silent. Part of me wanted to slam the door, but a quieter, uncertain part stepped back. Come in. The moment they entered, the air changed. Arthur immediately started appraising my furniture. Nice place, he muttered, brushing invisible crumbs off my couch like it personally offended him. Olivia walked straight into the kitchen, opened my fridge without asking. Oh, good. You've got real food. Then she told Arthur, you'd be doing all right by now. Doing all right? They made themselves at home, like I was the guest. I stood there, awkward, watching the two people who'd kicked me out rummage through my things. Finally, I asked, so, why are you really here? Olivia slowly closed the fridge. We need a place to stay. Just for a little while. Arthur nodded, still surveying the living room. The house got foreclosed on. Lucas's couch isn't big enough. And you've got the space. There it was. No apology. No acknowledgement of the years of silence. Just a casual assumption I'd open my door and give them what they wanted, like the scholarship money all over again. How long is a little while? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Olivia waved a hand. Until we get back on our feet. A few weeks, maybe a month. You'll barely notice us. I stared at them. You kicked me out. Arthur frowned. That was a long time ago. You were being disrespectful. I was protecting the only thing I had, I snapped. And you threw me out for it. You didn't call. You didn't check if I was alive. Olivia's voice softened, fake sweet. We just figured you'd be fine, Ethan. You always were the smart one. Independent. You mean disposable, I said. She flinched, and for a moment, I thought I'd gotten through. But her expression hardened. She crossed her arms. We're your parents. We raised you. You owe us. That broke something in me. I didn't yell, didn't scream. I just said, no. But they didn't leave. Not that day. Olivia started crying, or pretending to. Said they had nowhere to go, that I was their only hope. Arthur stayed silent, staring at the wall. Eventually, I told them they could stay for one night. Just one. They nodded, grateful. I slept with my door locked. The next morning, they were still there. Olivia was making coffee with the last of my beans. Arthur had the TV blaring. This isn't a hotel, I said. Olivia looked up, insulted. You said one night, we thought you'd reconsider after seeing how polite we were. Polite? I repeated. One night. I'm not changing my mind. They didn't fight me this time. They left slowly, bitterly. Olivia made a point of saying, you'll regret this. Family takes care of family. I didn't respond. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. Over the next few weeks, they started showing up unannounced. Sometimes late at night, sometimes during the day when I worked remotely. My building just had a basic lock. They always found a way in, sweet-talking a neighbor or slipping in behind someone. It was like they had radar for my most vulnerable moments. Once, I came home from a long day, having picked up an extra consulting gig, and found them already inside. Olivia had convinced my downstairs neighbor to buzz them in, claiming they were visiting their sweet son and forgot their key. I lost it. You can't keep doing this. Olivia had the audacity to say, well, if you just let us stay, we wouldn't have to. I changed the locks that weekend. I told my neighbors not to let anyone in unless I personally texted them. I thought it was over. But then the letters started. Handwritten notes left in my mailbox, slid under my door, taped to my windshield. We raised you. We deserve this. Don't forget who gave you life. You'll be sorry when we're gone. Each one chipped away at me. I tried to ignore them, to work through it, to focus on my life, but it was like being haunted. Then the real betrayal came from the one person I thought might actually understand. Lucas. He called out of the blue, his voice way too casual. Hey, little bro, heard Mom and Dad dropped by. I didn't say anything. He kept going. Look, I know things were rough, but they're really struggling. You've got a good thing now. Maybe just let them crash with you for a bit. It won't kill you. Are you serious? I said, heart pounding. They're our parents, Ethan. They took care of us. No! I snapped. They took care of you. They kicked me out. On my birthday. He had the nerve to laugh. Yeah, but you landed on your feet. You're the success story, so be the bigger man. That call ended fast. I told him to lose my number if he was just going to guilt-trip me. I hung up, shaking. That night, another knock. I didn't answer. Another letter appeared under the door the next morning, but this time, it wasn't Olivia's loopy handwriting. It was Lucas's. I tried to reason with you. If something happens to them, it's on you. I don't know what broke me more, the manipulation, or the realization that Lucas had clearly taken their side. The golden boy had spoken, and once again, I was the villain in the family script. I kept my distance, tried to move on. But Olivia and Arthur escalated. They started telling people we knew, old neighbors, distant cousins, that I'd turned my back on them, that I'd stolen their retirement by keeping my scholarship money, that I was hoarding wealth while they suffered. They painted this picture of a cold, arrogant son who'd forgotten his roots. One day, I walked into a local coffee shop, and the barista, who knew my family, said, "Hey, are your parents doing okay? I heard you kicked them out or something." That's when I realized they weren't just harassing me. They were trying to ruin me, to twist the truth, force my hand. Then, as if it couldn't get worse, they tried to guilt me through work. Someone from HR forwarded a voicemail left on our company's general line. A woman's voice, saying she was my mother, worried about me, hadn't heard from me in weeks, feared I was falling back into bad habits. She asked if someone could check in, said she didn't want me to end up like before. Before what? I hadn't done drugs. I hadn't been to therapy for anything serious beyond burnout and anxiety. But to someone who didn't know me, it sounded like a red flag. I was called into a meeting the next day. Nothing formal, just a check-in, but it was humiliating. My boss asked if everything was okay, if I needed time off. They had weaponized concern. That night, I sat in my living room, lights off, just numb. I stared at my phone, thought about calling a lawyer or the police or Lucas. I didn't know what to do. Then I got a text from an unrecognized number. A photo of my building, taken from the street. One message: "We're not going away, Ethan. Family is forever." That was the moment. The breaking point. Something inside me snapped, but not the way they wanted. That's when I decided I wasn't just going to block them. I was going to end this. Legally. Publicly. Permanently. I didn't sleep that night. After that photo, that twisted message, I just sat there, staring until the glow of my screen turned cold. My apartment was silent, but my brain was racing, tumbling through memories I hadn't touched in years. That photo wasn't just a threat. It was a reminder of leaving home with nothing but a bag. Of mornings eating cold instant ramen in a shelter. Of a nosebleed during finals, using old lecture notes to stop it because I couldn't afford tissues. I remembered it all. And now, these same people, who had left me out in the cold without a second thought, were standing outside my building, watching me. I felt sick, violated. I checked every lock, closed every blind, then did it again. I barely moved for hours. I called no one. I told no one, because deep down, I still carried that old shame. The kind that whispered, "You don't get to complain. You're lucky you made it out. Be grateful." But this wasn't just about me anymore. They had gone too far. This wasn't family drama. This was stalking, harassment. And the worst part was, they still didn't think they were doing anything wrong. The next morning, I called a lawyer. I just Googled until I found someone local who specialized in civil harassment and family disputes. Her name was Tessa. When I showed her the messages, the letters, that photo, she didn't blink. "This is serious," she said. "You have a right to feel safe in your own home." Those words cracked something open in me. Like I'd been holding my breath for years. A right to feel safe. I'd never thought of it that way. Not growing up in that house. Not when silence was the closest thing to love. Not when Lucas was praised for the bare minimum and I was punished for asking questions. Tessa walked me through the process of filing a restraining order. She explained what evidence would help, what the hearing would involve. It felt overwhelming. I wasn't a fighter, I was the kid who avoided conflict, who disappeared when voices got too loud. But this time, I didn't disappear. Instead, I started documenting everything. Every message, every note, every time someone mentioned my parents in public. I even asked my neighbor to check hallway security footage for the night I found the photo. It was there. A grainy clip of Olivia, my mother, standing outside my door, slipping something under it, looking around like she knew what she was doing was wrong. That video broke me again, in a different way. Not because of the threat, but because of how calm she looked, how casual, as if this wasn't cruelty, it was just parenting. I was spiraling. I flinched every time someone knocked. I checked the street before leaving for work. I had a nightmare that Lucas showed up at my office, telling my coworkers I was schizophrenic. I woke up sweating, heart pounding. I hit rock bottom a week later. It was a Thursday. I was supposed to present a quarterly update on a project I'd poured myself into for 6 months, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't even make it through the door. I stood in the lobby, hand on the elevator button, and froze. I kept seeing their faces, hearing their voices. You owe us. You'll regret this. Family takes care of family. I walked out, called in sick, went home, and didn't leave for 2 days. That weekend, I turned off my phone and just sat on the floor, curtains drawn. I didn't eat, didn't drink much. I didn't even cry. I just sat there, paralyzed by a kind of exhaustion I didn't know how to explain. But on the 3rd day, I woke up angry. Not fiery, screaming angry. Just done. Done being the quiet one. Done being the good son. Done being the scapegoat. I got up, showered, opened all the windows, and blasted music just to feel something. Then I made a list, the kind I hadn't made since college. Titled Rebuild, finalize restraining order paperwork with Tessa. Install security cameras inside and outside. Send formal cease and desist to Lucas. Talk to HR about the voicemail incident. Book a session with a therapist. I didn't do it all at once, but I started. And starting changed everything. I met with Tessa, handing over neatly organized, tabbed, and labeled documentation. You're thorough, she said. I just smiled. I had practice. I installed 2 security cameras, posted clear signs. I wasn't trying to be sneaky. I wanted them to know I wasn't afraid anymore. I sent Lucas a formal cease and desist through Tessa's office. I didn't hear back, but I know he got it. The silence was louder than any fake apology. I met with my HR manager and laid out everything, the history, the voicemail, the photo. Her eyes widened as she read my timeline. She looked at me differently after that, not with pity, but with something like respect. You're stronger than I realized, she said. I didn't feel strong, but I nodded anyway. And finally, I found a therapist named Jordan, who specialized in family trauma. The first session was awkward, I kept deflecting, making jokes. But then he said something that stuck with me, surviving is admirable, but thriving, that's the real revenge. That line lived in my head for days. And slowly, I started to thrive. I started running in the mornings, not for weight or looks, but to burn off anxiety. I stopped checking the blinds every 10 minutes. I started sleeping with my bedroom door open. That was huge. I reconnected with an old college friend, Malia. She was the first person I told everything to, unfiltered. She didn't flinch. She just listened. And when I showed her one of the letters, the one where Olivia wrote, "We should have stopped trying after Lucas. At least he knows loyalty." Malia didn't get angry for me. She got angry with me. You deserve better, she said. And you're building it. That became my new anchor. I worked harder than ever, took on a leadership role, led a successful pitch. I saved aggressively, watched my account balance climb. I looked at condos. I started designing a software product I'd dreamed about since college, something that helped people track family law documents for self-represented individuals. Because if there was one thing I knew now, it was that not everyone has a Tessa. Not everyone gets the help they need. And I wanted to change that. But just as things stabilized, just as I finally felt free, something happened that reminded me this war wasn't over. A letter arrived. No return address. Different handwriting. Inside was a single line, "You might have a lawyer, but we have stories." And a USB drive. When I first saw that USB drive, I stared at it like it might explode. It was small, nondescript, but the weight of it felt heavy in my hand. I didn't plug it in right away. I sat at my desk, staring at the blinking cursor, the drive resting like a ticking bomb. My thoughts went in circles. What was on it? What did they mean by "we have stories"? Were they threatening me with lies, blackmail, or worse, some twisted version of the truth? Eventually, I booted up an old laptop I hadn't used in years. No personal files, no work network. I disabled Wi-Fi, opened a fresh guest account, and plugged in the drive. Inside was a single folder, Ethan proof. I opened it. For video files. No descriptions, just dates. The first was dated 2 months prior. I clicked play and immediately felt the blood drain from my face. It was Olivia, sitting in her car, crying, or pretending to. The camera was angled just enough to catch her face, and she kept glancing at it, making sure it was recording. She was saying things like, "We just want to see our son. We raised him and now he won't even answer the door." She spoke in that soft, wobbly tone people use to sound heartbroken. It was a performance. A disgusting, manipulative performance. The next video was worse. Arthur, standing outside my apartment, speaking to the camera with rehearsed solemnity. "If anything happens to us," he said, "it's on Ethan. We tried to reach out. We tried everything." At one point, he looked off screen and said, "Should I mention the scholarship?" And Olivia's voice whispered, "Yes, but say it was a misunderstanding, not theft." The third video was from Lucas. He was seated at a dining table, probably his apartment. His tone was less emotional, more calculated. "Ethan's always had issues," he said. "He isolates himself. He cuts people out when they don't agree with him. We just want him to get help." He even cited my therapy appointment, one I'd mentioned to him in passing years ago, as proof that I had a pattern. The fourth video was just a screen recording of an email from me, years ago. An old reply I sent to Lucas in college where I said, "I can't take this anymore. Sometimes I feel like disappearing." Out of context, it sounded dramatic, dangerous even. Especially with Lucas's narration over it, he said things like this before. "He won't talk to us. We're worried he's unstable." I sat there, watching these people, my family, build a false narrative of a mentally unstable son, of abusive, cold-hearted behavior, of paranoia, of cruelty. They weren't trying to reconcile. They were preparing a smear campaign, maybe for court, maybe for friends, maybe for the internet. And they were filming it like they were the victims. I unplugged the drive, sat back, and for a moment, I didn't feel anger. I felt calm. Because now I knew exactly who they were. Not just in my memories, but in their own words, on video. This wasn't gaslighting anymore. This was evidence. And I was done playing defense. It was time to go on offense. The next morning, I booked a follow-up with Tessa. I walked into her office with the USB drive, my security footage, screenshots of the messages, and a binder labeled Harassment Evidence, Olivia and Arthur Timeline. She flipped through it, her brows rising. "Ethan," she said, looking up, "this isn't just enough for a restraining order. This is strong enough for civil litigation." I nodded. "I want to go all the way." She asked if I was ready for what that would mean, the hearings, the exposure, the possibility of them turning public opinion against me. "They already did that," I said. "Now I'm just catching up." From that moment on, I stopped reacting. I started planning. Step 1: cut them off completely. No more texts, no calls. I blocked their numbers, locked down every social account, upgraded my building security. I added facial recognition entry for myself and set up alerts for any motion outside my door. The cameras now had cloud backups. I left nothing to chance. I even hired a private investigator, Malia's suggestion. He was discreet but efficient. Within a week, he had footage of Olivia and Arthur sitting outside my old high school, talking to someone, possibly a reporter, feeding them lines about how I had abandoned my roots. They were already trying to spin their story into something bigger. And if that was their plan, then I had to make sure my story was louder. Step 2: control the narrative. I started documenting everything publicly, but not in a messy Reddit post. I created a clean, professional blog, a small, password-protected corner of the internet I shared with only a few trusted people at first. It was titled, Surviving Estrangement, a Journal. I wrote about what it meant to grow up where you were never enough, where success became currency your parents tried to steal. I never used names, never accused directly, but I told the truth. Slowly, quietly, the site got traction. Other estranged children reached out. Some shared their own stories. Some just said, "Thank you." It gave me strange strength, knowing I wasn't alone, that I wasn't crazy. Then the email came. A producer from a mid-tier podcast on family trauma and legal drama wanted to interview me. They'd found the blog and said my story resonated. At first, I hesitated. Going public was risky. I didn't want to be that guy, airing his family's dirty laundry. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized they'd already done that. They'd filmed fake videos, twisted my words, painted me as unstable. If I was going to be portrayed as the villain in someone else's story, I'd rather tell the truth in my own. So, I said yes. The interview wasn't flashy, just audio. 45 minutes of me telling my story, slowly, calmly, clearly. I didn't attack. I didn't name names. But I laid out the facts, the eviction, the scholarship, the stalking, the smear campaign. The episode aired 3 weeks later. Within a day, it had 10,000 plays. Within a week, over 100,000. Strangers started reaching out. Therapists, authors, even a lawyer from another state who was starting a nonprofit to help young adults facing forced homelessness from family manipulation. She asked if I'd join the advisory board. I said yes. And somewhere in the middle of all that, something shifted in me. I no longer felt like I was surviving. I was rising. Step 3: hit where it hurts. Legally. The hearing date for the restraining order was finally set. Tessa and I prepared like it was a trial. We rehearsed my statement, lined up witnesses, including my HR manager and Malia, and submitted the USB drive and security footage as formal evidence. But we didn't stop there. Tessa filed a parallel suit, emotional damages, defamation, and invasion of privacy. The videos, especially the ones discussing spinning false narratives, gave us leverage. And Javier's footage confirmed they had tried to mislead a reporter. That opened the door for intent to harm. The best part? They had no idea what was coming. As far as Olivia and Arthur knew, I was still rattled, quiet, beaten down. That's how they liked me. Easy to control, easy to guilt. So I stayed silent, let them stew until the court summons arrived. And then, like clockwork, the calls started again. This time from a different number. "Ethan, what is this? A lawsuit? Are you insane?" I didn't answer. They left voicemails, emails. Even sent a handwritten apology that reeked of insincerity. But I didn't flinch. Because revenge, I was learning, didn't have to be loud. It just had to be smart. And now, I was ready to play that game better than they ever imagined. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. I'd pictured something grand, but it was just a beige room with harsh lighting and a faint smell of coffee and old paper. But what it lacked in drama, it made up for in tension. You could feel it, thick and quiet, like the moment before a thunderstorm. I sat beside Tessa at the petitioner's table, calm on the outside, wired tight on the inside. My palms were sweating. I kept my hands under the table. Across from me, Olivia and Arthur whispered furiously to their attorney, a man in a wrinkled suit who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Olivia was dressed like she was going to church, pearls, floral dress. Arthur wore a suit jacket over a t-shirt that said "World's #1 Dad." I wasn't sure if the irony was intentional or just tone-deaf. They didn't look at me, not once. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The hearing began. Tessa opened with a clear, composed summary of the harassment, detailing every visit, every letter, every escalation. She presented the timeline, the motion activated. Security footage, the screenshots, the USB drive. She spoke like a surgeon, precise, controlled, unemotional. Then came the witness statements. Malia went first. She described the night I found the photo, how shaken I was, how I checked every window, how I didn't sleep for days. Her voice cracked once, but she held steady. My HR manager spoke next, confirming the voicemail and the odd email. She mentioned how I'd been pulled into a wellness meeting over concerns that were later revealed to be unfounded, manufactured. Then it was my turn. I stood. My voice was steady, but my hands trembled slightly. I told the court everything, from the birthday eviction to the relentless pressure, the stalking, the smear campaign. I didn't dramatize. I didn't embellish. I just told the truth. They didn't just try to manipulate me, I said. They tried to destroy me. When they couldn't control my future, they tried to rewrite my past. There was a pause when I finished. The judge nodded and turned to their side. Olivia asked to speak. She stood up slowly, clutching a tissue like a prop. Her voice was watery, trembling. We're his parents. We never meant to hurt him. We didn't know how to reach him. We were scared for him. Everything we did, it came from love. The judge asked, "Did you record videos falsely portraying your son as mentally unstable?" Olivia hesitated. "They weren't false, Your Honor. He has had issues. He's always been distant. Difficult." Tessa stood. "Your Honor, with respect, being private and independent is not a mental illness." Arthur finally spoke loudly. "This is ridiculous. He's making us out to be monsters just because we wanted to see him. We gave him everything." The judge raised a hand. "Sir, please sit. You'll have a chance to speak through your attorney." But their attorney didn't say much. He looked at the evidence, looked at his clients, and offered a limp defense that boiled down to, "This is a misunderstanding." The judge called for a short recess. I stepped into the hallway with Tessa. Malia joined us. No one said much. We just stood in a quiet triangle, breathing slowly, watching the seconds tick by. 15 minutes later, we were called back in. The judge's decision was swift, thorough, and brutal in its clarity. A 5-year restraining order was granted, maximum length, prohibiting Olivia and Arthur from contacting me in any form, approaching my residence or place of work, or using any third party to communicate on their behalf. Any violation would result in immediate arrest. The judge also referred the matter to civil court with a strong recommendation that the defamation and emotional distress claims proceed. She noted the video footage as deeply disturbing and indicative of sustained malice. Then she turned to them. "You are not victims. You are manipulators. This court does not exist to validate false narratives or emotional blackmail. You have crossed a line, and Mr. Miller has every right to protect his peace." When the gavel came down, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. But it wasn't just relief. It was closure. The civil case moved forward slowly, as they do, but the momentum was on our side. Their lawyer tried to negotiate a settlement early, a quiet agreement, no admission of guilt, a small financial sum. We declined. I didn't want silence. I wanted truth. I wanted a record. I wanted them to have to answer for what they did, not just in my life, but on paper. The suit took 7 months to resolve. During discovery, we found more emails between Olivia and Lucas discussing ways to make Ethan look unbalanced. A private group chat with relatives gossiping about me. Screenshots of social media posts where they hinted at being cut off by a narcissistic son. It all came out. When they realized how deep the evidence ran, they crumbled. We settled eventually, on my terms. They issued a written apology, drafted by our legal team, to be made public in the same online spaces where they had defamed me. They agreed to pay damages for emotional distress, which I donated in full to a scholarship fund for estranged students. And they agreed to a no-contact order that extended beyond the restraining order's expiration. I haven't seen them since. As for Lucas, he never contacted me again. Last I heard, he moved to Florida with his girlfriend and changed jobs twice in the same year. I could have pursued him legally. We had enough to include him in the civil suit. But I didn't. Not because I forgave him, but because he's not worth the effort. I don't think he'll ever change. I think deep down he enjoyed being the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, who stood on the pedestal while I took the fall. And I think he'll keep trying to be important by stepping on other people to stay tall. But not me. Not anymore. The fallout wasn't just legal. People started reaching out. Old classmates, a few distant cousins, even a couple of teachers from high school who remembered how quiet I was, how hard I worked. They said they'd heard the story through the podcast or the blog. They said they were sorry, that they wished they'd seen what I was going through. One of them, my sophomore math teacher, sent me a message that made me pause. I always thought you were brave for asking questions when no one else would. I'm glad the world finally sees who you are. That hit harder than I expected. I still run the blog. It's grown into something more now, a small, moderated, safe community. We host workshops, guest posts. We even launched a yearly scholarship for students cut off by their families. Last year, we helped 3 kids cover their first semester. I keep my personal life quieter now. Malia and I are still together. She's the first person I've ever truly felt safe with. Not because she fixes everything, but because she listens. She doesn't try to rewrite my story. She just holds it with me. I still go to therapy. Still have days where the weight of it all sneaks up on me, a smell, a song, a dream. But those days are fewer now. And when they come, I know how to ride them out, because I know who I am. Not the scapegoat, not the problem, not the failure. Just Ethan. A man who rebuilt his life brick by brick, truth by truth. People always ask me if I miss them. My parents. The family I lost. And I tell them the truth, I didn't lose them. They were never mine to begin with. The day I stopped chasing their love was the day I found peace. What would you have done with that USB drive?